Hello, I'm Steph from idriveaclassic, and we often talk about the stories of cars or manufacturers. But in this series, which we're going to be dipping in and out of throughout the year, this is a bit different. This is classic heroes. These are the people that we meet at car shows, at events, at various places throughout our automotive journeys. And you think, wow, that person had a really good story or has got incredible experience. And it just seems such a travesty to let that story disappear off into the ether and never be shared. So in this series, I'm going to be showing you people that I admire, respect, and that have captivated me with their own personal journeys through the world of automotive, and I think will probably interest you too. Time to fire up the Proton, because today we are heading down to Peterborough to meet Barry. First of all, how did you get into Citroen? Because I've heard that your dad Fred actually had a Morris Minor.
My dad had several Morris Minors, but they weren't his passion. They were his workhorses. Mm-hmm. He did them up, used them, mm-hmm. and then threw them away when he was finished with them. But his passion was Citroen. His love of them came about because of their engineering.
And so I've heard that your dad was one of the founding members of the Traction Avant Club.
Yeah. Through the 60s and the early 70s, the Traction got, because of its age and everything else, it got dismissed. You know, as we see here, the DS came out in '55, and it was like the spaceship of the modern times. And obviously the 2CE was around and other Citroens, and the Traction just drifted away. But in the meantime, my dad had, in his spare time, repaired a lot of the local cars, kept them going for a lot of younger people, students and things like that. He bought a lot of cars and broke them, kept the spares. And then he moved on through the club. And then in the early 70s, a lot of the youngsters that were into the car because they liked the Traction, decided they wanted to form their own club. At that point, I was 20.
But your love of Citroens had started earlier, hadn't it?
Yeah, like always, when I was 5, 6, I'd be with Dad, always down the garage like this on weekends, pulling things apart and getting in the way.
Is that how you learnt everything that you do?
Yeah, a lot of stuff.
Really? So what was your first big job on a Citroen?
When I started in Kingston, was after the tea break, the foreman said to me, he said, you're Fred's son, aren't you, the Traction bloke? I said, yeah, that's right. He said, well, you're all right. He said, we got one of these, same year as this, about 65, 66. It was in the corner. Mm-hmm. It was a Safari. And he said, we got to, you can start taking that apart. We've got to take the gearbox out to replace the ring gear. So,
it's not a quick job.
Oh, all right, okay. and that was it. Yeah. So.
And so, how long would a gearbox change of one of these take?
It depends what you're doing to the car, but you're looking at good 10, 12 hours.
Really?
Yeah. Sort of, 2 days at the end of the day. There's all sorts of different ways of doing them. Some take the gearbox out. I personally prefer to take the edge of the gearbox as a unit because there's lots of other things on a D that you do when it's out because of the way it's installed in the car and the mileage that they do. You don't take them out very often. So,
So what's your first on-the-road Citroen?
Oh, that's a good question, that. Funnily enough, my first on-the-road car was, believe it or not, dare I say, was an Austin A30, which I didn't have for too long. But again, being my dad, it came along cheap enough to use.
Yeah.
But my first Citroen I probably bought was a 2CV again.
Yeah.
But in France, Citroen had started up some 2CV racing called 2CV Popcross.
That's cool.
Which was basically a bit like grass track racing, if you like. and they brought it to England, and so my next trip was to see Dennis, who was the breakers chap, and I said, "What have you got?" And he said, "I've got this one over there, left-hand drive thing, 425. I said, "That'll do." So I bought it, put it together, and went racing. And then I did it from then on until it finished in '83.
So did you just race a standard, or did you put extra bits and pieces on?
No, that had to be standard cars.
Okay.
You could lower the suspension and all that sort of stuff. And as it progressed, you could do a little bit more, but nothing like the racing today, which is, you know, mad.
But your adventures don't stop there, do they? Because you've been all over the world with your love of Citroens.
The 2CV, particularly worldwide, has travelled the world. I think it's got the highest altitude record of 24,000 feet. It's been across the Sahara. It's been everywhere. Anyway, the Australians, not wanting to be left out, they do although Citroen used to import cars to Slough, from Slough to Australia, and the Australians decided, I don't know what year it was, but it was certainly probably late 70s, early 80s. They decided every 4 years they would do what they call Raid Australia.
Okay.
So I built a car and shipped it out, and did Raid Australia '96. Hence, sort of where the hat came from.
So you talk about, you very nonchalantly just told me that you built a car and you shipped it out, but what car did you send out?
There's only one to take, 2CV.
2CV. So how many miles did you do on this trip?
I did 24,000 kilometres in it in 4.5 weeks. Broke the shock absorber and broke the exhaust. That was it, really. Dad had a traction, a roadster, which was it was a one-off car. It was built.
Right.
It was built for the for the 1940 British Motor Show by Citroen Slough.
Which I assume didn't happen.
Which didn't happen.
Yeah.
And it was. It had lots of different things on it, like all the gear rods were chrome and,
oh, really?
You know, real typical sort of motor show car.
Yeah.
And that's what this car was. It was built for the 40 motor show in '39, but it never happened. And so Dad was obsessed with this car. Anyway, the car obviously got sold by Citroen Slough, and a famous racing driver bought it. He had a garage in Potter's Bar, you know, car garage, but he was a racing driver.
Yeah.
He bought the car and he ran it for quite a few years, and then he swapped that car with somebody for I think a Talbot Largo.
I never hear of you taking a day off. You're always busy, you've always got work in, and it's not even on new Citroens that maybe go probably to a Citroen dealership. It's to your older stuff, even through to your late 90s, early 2000s.
The car is my life, but like you say, all my holidays, families have all been a busman's holiday.
Yeah.
But a very enjoyable busman's holiday, you know, and I've been I've seen a lot of the world, which I wouldn't have done. Same as my lad, you know. Not so much my daughter, but she's in her earlier days. You know, she'd come with us she's been to Holland with us, and France, and so on and so forth. You know.
Does she drive a Citroen?
Yeah, she's got a Picasso. She's learning to drive, but I've got her a Picasso. She loves it.
Your knowledge is so incredible, because something that I saw you and your son Peter do is when James Walsh from Practical Classics, that I think a lot of people will know, he had well, I guess the correct term to use is accident, but it was through no fault of his own. He was waiting in a ferry queue and essentially he was the middle of the sandwich. And the 2CV that you once owned, Tupperware, which James now owns, became the filling within the sandwich. And you two painstakingly, with a bit of help from James, put her all back together and she looks better than ever.
Yeah.
You're very modest and your skill set is incredible. I've seen you do some brilliant bits and pieces, and I think that if a lot of people were to see some of the cars that you've worked on and the work that you've done, it's really, really inspiring.
Jonathan Hopper, a young lad. I used to look after his car. He rings me up, just over a year ago. He says, I've seen a CX for sale.
Yeah.
And I said, all right, okay. He said, it's a project.
Yeah.
So he sent me some pictures of it and stuff. And so we're in the middle of sort of recommissioning that for him at the moment. We've had it up and running and stuff.
The journey for us and Citroen continues because, I mean, you've got a fair full plate of things to be getting on with in 2024. But tomorrow on the channel, you'll be able to watch James's 2CV, the 2CV that you once owned.
Oh, right, yeah.
Because we're going to be testing Tupperware and showing everybody Tupperware and really singing the praises for the 2CV.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's it from us today. We've got to go and get some footage of the 2CV.
Okay.
But thank you so much.
No
and
problem.
until next Sunday, take care and drive safely.